And now, Pujya Atman Sri Swami Jyotirmayananda commences tonight's satsang with a Sanskrit peace chant.
Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We begin with mystic song by Sri Swami Lalitananda, played and sung by Sri Swami Umananda and Rajneesh.
Our song tonight is called I Adore Lord Shiva. He nourishes the universe. A crescent moon shines on his high forehead, while the Ganges flows on his great matted locks. He wears the garland of mystic lightning snakes. Shiva holds his trident to destroy the dark night of the soul. The drum of Shiva calls, Brahman alone is real. The world is an illusion. Just as a fruit falls from a tree, never to go back to the tree again. So let my soul leave this world free of bondage. We are recording from the ashram of our revered Guru, Pujya Atman Sri Swami Jyotirmayananda in Miami, Florida. Today is April the 13th, 2021, Tuesday evening, and tonight Swamiji will be lecturing on the Yoga Vasistha. This is series 2018, class number 330. And now Pujya Atman Sri Swami Jyotirmayananda.
Om Brahmanandam Param Sukhadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Vandvatitam Gagan Sadrisham Tattvamasya Laksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadhi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Trigunaraitam Sadgurum Tam Namami. Om. Adorations to Sadguru, who is Brahman, the giver of supreme bliss, embodiment of pure consciousness, one without a second, vast as the ether, infinite, eternal, beyond the three gunas and their modifications, the supreme preceptor. Yoga Vasistha Nirvana Prakarana Purvardha, and sections that we are dealing with are 73 and 74. It begins with the story of King Bhagiratha, who brought down Ganges. That's allegorical storyline. But Yoga Vasistha presents another picture, another aspect of Bhagiratha. How did he attain enlightenment? Led by the guidance of Guru. And after enlightenment, he had the project of bringing the Ganges by worshipping Shiva from his matted locks. Word Bhagiratha is very important word in Vedic history. The little subtle meaning behind it. Your personality is a ratha, chariot. If the chariot leads to God, it becomes a Bhagiratha. Bhagi is Bhagavan. Ratha, to allow your chariot to flow, march towards Bhagavan. And when we say Bhaga, 6 attributes known as Bhaga, whoever possesses them is Bhagavan. And what are those attributes? Aishwarya, infinite glory. Dharma, infinite righteousness. Yasha, boundless fame. Shri, possessor of all wealth, especially divine wealth, infinite measure. Gyan, absolute wisdom. Vairagya, absolute dispassion. These great attributes, they are to be the source of inspiration for an aspirant, because you are growing in the image of God. So all these 6 attributes will begin to manifest and flow through your personality in different degrees. You are practicing the smallest measure of dharma, you are following the path of God. So, with that, Sri Rama asked, O sage, please relate to me the manner in which King Bhagiratha attained enlightenment and was able to bring down the Ganges from the heavens, which was a most difficult task. Bhagiratha, another point in Hindu literature, whenever a great hero is described and his effort, the example is given of Bhagiratha Prayatna. The parallel in Western language is Herculean effort. And attaining self-realization is Herculean effort. It is the most dynamic effort, because not only you become enlightened, but you bring Jnana Ganga, the sacred stream of wisdom, to enable others to attain salvation or liberation. So now the story and insight into how Bhagiratha attained enlightenment, presented by sage Vasistha. O Rama, once there lived a very religious king known as Bhagiratha. He was endowed with generosity, heroism, selflessness, and all great qualities that adorn a virtuous ruler. All this is allegorical. So if you want to follow the example of Bhagiratha, you don't have to be a political ruler. If you are developing divine qualities and discovering the freedom of your will, if your will becomes attuned to God's will, you discover amazing freedom. So in order to be qualified for pursuing the path of liberation, these great qualities have been mentioned. Generosity, that always relates to three Da. Dhamma, control of mind and senses. Dana, charity. Daya, compassion. If these qualities are developing, your higher self is dominating your personality. So in order to raise your personality to that stage of being dominated by the higher self, these qualities must be cultivated, the virtues. Heroism, strength of faith, selflessness, all great qualities that adorn a virtuous ruler. If you have developed these, you are developing these qualities, You are becoming more and more swatantra, independent, discovering amazing power within yourself. Led by God. While he was still young, he reflected upon the transitory nature of the world process. Taking recourse to seclusion, he reflected thus: how qualification is developed for attaining enlightenment. Adhikaritva. Firstly, one is led by countless good karmas of the past lives to become inclined to following the path leading to liberation. And when that inclination begins to develop, vairagya begins to dawn in your mind as a result of your reflective nature. You begin to reflect upon what is substantial and what is in vain. Day and night alternate again and again. Repeatedly, I must perform acts of charity and generosity. Again and again, I must discharge my daily duties. Is there anything satisfying that I can acquire from the world? All that exists in this world is bound to perish. He is already performer of good deeds, but you cannot live in the world forever performing good deed for day after day. And of course, life presents a repeat of your experiences of pleasure and pain. The repeat of enjoyments, the same enjoyments that you have been fed up with. Again, you will come back to them. The two stages, Sat karma and Nishkamya karma. First, your karma's actions become more and more virtuous. In the early stage, when you do virtuous karmas, you are expecting to have heavenly enjoyment here and hereafter. But heavenly enjoyment is not the goal. After Swarga Sukha enjoyed, the soul must follow the law of karma and gets involved with the cycle of birth and death. So, good karma leads you to heaven. But Bhoga-based vision doesn't allow you to attain liberation. You come back again and again. So that's the stage of Sat-karma, good karma. But Sat-karma opens the door to Nishkamya karma, implying that you are not looking forward to happiness in the terms of sense enjoyment. You're not looking forward to being drawn to a drunken house of pleasure. The pleasure is the drink. But you want to be drawn to spiritual delight. That leads you to moksha, liberation. Alas, people in the world continue to perform the same acts for gratifying their senses again and again in a shameless manner. Like children, they continue to repeat the same actions day by day. Life flows on. Same experiences, similar experiences continue day by day. But you end up with dull-witted intellect or dull-wit mind. You don't find any real insight, real purpose to be accomplished. Thus, reflecting within himself, Bhagiratha developed this passion deep within his heart and sought the instructions of his royal guru, Tritala. His guru's name is Tritala. Tala relates to levels, planes, lokas. And Tritala, Tala actually means underlying the lokas. Three is the three lokas. Bhur, bhuva, swa. Tala, what underlies, what goes beyond the three lokas. Remember in sannyasa diksha, three lokas are renounced. Bhu sanyastamaya, bhuva sanyastamaya, swa sanyastamaya. Every spiritual aspirant, whether he has been initiated into sannyasa or not, the goal is the same. Bhu is the practical reality. Bhuva, sentimental reality. Bhor bhuva, swa, reality that you experience based on your understanding. All the three levels, they go to constitute the world process. The absolute reality is beyond. You are not in the level of senses, nor in the level of sentiments, nor in the level of your intellectual insight. All these three are transcended. Reality is like the sun, and three lokas are illuminations of the sun in three stages. Illuminations in the clouds, illuminations that create rainbows, illuminations that create reflected suns. This is all allegorical, it's not mathematical. But behind all these illuminations, what is real? The sun. So Tritala relates to that type of wisdom. Sage Tritala instructed him thus: O sinless king, by the practice of listening, reflection, and meditation on the Absolute, the mind turns its flow towards Brahman, Shavana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. Again and again on the path of Jnana, path of Vedanta, you are reminded of these practices. Shavana removes doubts. If your mind deals with doubts, that means you need to listen more to scriptures, more and more and more. Listening corrects your personal view. Generally, when you listen to anybody, you have already made up your view. So you are not really listening. But effective listening is move away from your view. Be open-hearted when you are listening to a talk, and try to evaluate it with open-hearted mind, open mind. Listening removes doubt. Mind that is trying to get into two boats, allegorical way of saying, doesn't know which boat. Both boats are there to take you from across. But one time you want to be in this boat, another time you want to be on that boat. That scatters the mental strength. And practice of Shavana goes on removing that doubting state of mind. Manana removes asambhavana. You have already made up your mind that it is impossible for you to attain liberation because you know all your karmas. Not really, literally, but you develop that type of concept. But as a result of manana, listening is just like eating. In the case of a cow, eats first, puts it a lot into his throat area, and then sits relaxed and go on chewing the cud. So Shavana allows you to gulp down a lot of teachings. Manana, you start chewing the cud, reflecting upon it, digesting it. Sanshaya bhavana, viparita bhavana, sanshaya bhavana, asambhavana, and viparita bhavana. The third great obstacle is perverted vision. What is most glaring fact that your mind turns away from it and goes after illusions. The illustration is you're looking at your face in a mirror. Someone comes and says, "What are you doing?" You say, "I'm seeing my face." But it is a complete lie. You are looking at the mirror first. Then you are looking into the face. But what you are seeing first, you ignore it. What you are experiencing first is your awareness. Awareness, Chaitanya, consciousness. If you are not conscious, nothing can be possible. In that consciousness, there develops illusions. Consciousness is a rope, and all world experiences like snake type of modification of that rope. And Nididhyasan is very advanced stage of meditation. Vedantic meditation is in intense state of vichar. So when these impediments are removed, when the flow of mind towards Brahman is promoted, all miseries terminate, all sorrows cease. The self is to be known. This is the goal of human existence. That self is the eternal reality, beyond rising and setting. This is the goal of life. A revelation, prajnanam Brahma, pure consciousness is Brahman. And that's your essential nature. All your experiences are reflections in a lake. And that lake is pure consciousness. All these are being said quickly, but the realization requires Herculean effort. Bhagirath asked, "O sage, how am I to hold this knowledge of the self like a berry in my hand?" The Sanskrit word is hasta malakvat. When a knowledge you have gained, but you are not secure of that knowledge, then it is you are holding a big coconut in your palm of hand. Yes. All you are experiencing is a big weight. But when a knowledge has delighted your heart and becomes a source of constant inspiration, you are hasta malakvat. You have found a very delicious berry in your hand. So it's perfectly secure. Your hand is also feels delightful. How can I attain freedom from the distractions of the mind in order to abide in the self that is immutable, pure, and devoid of gunas, modes of nature? Sage Tritala answered, in order to direct your mind to the supremely knowable Atman, you must cultivate these divine qualities. And what are those? Renunciation of attachments, asakti tyag, sanga tyag, freedom from the sense of possession towards one's relations and property. That means renouncing ahamata and mamata, me and mine. These are illusions. What you think of your identity, that identity is not your real you. In your previous births, you had a different identity. From birth to birth, your identities change. So, in your daily life, you are living with illusory identity. Shedding this illusion, that becomes qualification for attaining enlightenment. So, shedding me and mine and maintaining balance of mind in all conditions. That means practice of shama, serenity. All these are ideals to be promoted with patience. These qualities are expressions of a Godward movement of life and must therefore be cultivated. Meditate upon the spiritual truth that the self alone is the reality behind the world. There is nothing else. Try to reflect upon the nature of your waking state. Your waking state is like a long dream. There are so many details in your waking state. But it is very similar to dream because you are groping in darkness. You don't know yourself. You don't know what you are really expecting to get. And the world that you are viewing as real, that's based upon your limited senses. It is not real. If your eyesight had a different degree, highly qualified, you will be seeing like some of the animals see from a long distance, miles away. I'm just giving a simple understanding that neither you have complete sight, not complete hearing, not complete smelling, but a little pinch of these. So the world that you are experiencing is a complete illusion. The world experience is called long dream. And yes, a simple parallel is experienced in your dream. Maintain Brahmakara vritti without any obstruction. This is the ideal. Ideal is to be fully aware of who am I. The mind flowing towards that full awareness moves away from Vishayakara vritti. Mind remains limited when thinking of objects. When limitations move away, your mind begins to subside. And that movement is Brahmakara vritti. Brahmakara vritti is like awakening. You are thinking of things in your dream. That's similar to Vishayakara vritti. Now suddenly an insight develops to wake up. So that movement of your mind is like Brahmakara vritti. With a dream illustration, it's easier to understand. Abide in solitary places for profound meditation. Solitary place should not be taken literally. It means type of place that is conducive to promoting your spiritual aspiration. Like an ashram, where you are led to practice simple livings, high thinking, and where you are able to cultivate divine virtues. Here again, from a broad point of view, if you are internally in tune with God's will, if you are internally advancing on the path of bhakti, devotion, and continuing to view yourself an instrument in divine hand, then even if you live in a crowd, you are living in seclusion, unaffected by the crowd. In the midst of big festivity and all noises, who is most unaffected? Spoon. And at the same time very busy. Striking against your teeth, the spoon makes its sound. And lots of sound goes out. But the spoon is in seclusion. So try to understand the role of seclusion. Do not rejoice in the company of evildoers, but be devoted to the study of scriptures and take recourse to satsanga or good association. Satsanga is the mantra. In all conditions, how to switch your mind to that which is inspirational. All these are expressions of growing wisdom in your heart. O King, with the removal of egoism, one attains that knowledge of the self which destroys the afflictions of raga dvesha. By mentioning raga dvesha, you are being directed towards 5 kleshas: ignorance, egoism, attachment, hatred, fear of death. These klishta karmas, they are the basis of keeping the soul confined to the world of misery for a long, long time, until kleshas are removed by wisdom. So by removing any one of the kleshas, focus your mind on removing raga, attachment. The quality that allows you to do that is vairagya. But in order to perfect vairagya, you should be free of fear of death. You should be free of egoism. And you should be free of your ignorance. By removing kleshas, one cures the disease of the world process. Of all the means to liberation, the highest method lies in abandoning the ego sense. What will melt down your ego? That's what you have to understand. First, you have to be spiritually sensitive. When you are worse in your personality, when your ego sense has become inflated, so try to see and compare the different states of your ego. When ego is inflated, what happens to your personality? When you are dealing with people and you develop annoyance, rage, irritation, and ego is scratching all over. How does it taste? But while doing good actions, being praised by people, and you feel humbled, ego is melting. Now what type of experience do you have in your heart level? You are doing immense good to your heart. And compared to that experience, inflated ego becomes a big disease, a kind of cancer. So what should you go on doing it? To let the ego sense turn like a transparent rod. Ego is needed like a rod supporting your soul's movement. But if the rod is opaque, you don't see anything beyond your ego. When it is transparent, you see constantly beyond your ego. King Bhagirath asked, O sage, how am I to root out the mighty tree of egoism which has developed its strong roots deep within my heart? Sage Tirthala replied, first take recourse to self-effort in the practice of wisdom, that's Jnana Yoga, and thus renounce the petty desires of the mind for the perishable objects of the world. Petty desires for perishable objects. First, develop vairagya towards them. Be free of luxuries, vain desires for eat, drink, and be merry. And that you must deal with in a progressive manner. Then abandon subtle desires of the unconscious. That implies vasana suddhi. Desires that you are aware of. First you deal with them. Next, subtle desires that are suppressed in your subconscious. Those desires will undergo automatic change. And behold the grandeur of the self in the placid lake of the mind. By beholding the self, the mist of ego disappears like darkness before the rising sun. What it points out to mala, vikshepa and avarana. Three obstacles are to be removed by pursuing the path of your sadhana. Mala, gross impurities, backed up by worldly desires, conscious desires. Vikshepa, the subconscious desires are purified by your sadhana. Avarana, when Brahmakara vritti has developed, this sense of spiritual awakening, then the veil of illusion is destroyed. As a result, you attain self-realization. You are ready to bring Jnana Ganga for the whole world. With this, I am going to conclude. Om Ram 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 Ram